Ladies and gentlemen, in this Red Gaming Silicon video, we're going to be discussing the secondary processor and additional memory that has been discovered inside Sony's PlayStation 4. There was also an accompanying article which you can see in the description, which actually has diagrams and stuff of these internals, so you can get an idea of actually how it's all put together. Anyway, it's been hinted for a while that the PlayStation 4 does indeed contain a secondary processor. Now, before everyone gets super excited, it is not another AMD Jaguar or, a bunch of GCN cores or something like that. Instead, it's something a little bit less exciting, but still very important. It's most likely going to be one of the PS4's unsung heroes, in that it is actually a low-power ARM chip. Now, the purpose of this chip is somewhat up in the air at the moment. It actually has multiple uses most likely, including things such as taking care of background downloading, as well as, for example, standby tasks, for example, keeping the system up to date. But before we discuss that anymore, let's also discuss the memory. So I did tell you guys that there was also additional memory inside the system, and indeed this is the case. There's 2 gigabits of DDR3 SD-RAM. Now note gigabits, not gigabytes. In other words, that's 256 megabytes. As the difference between, of course, a gigabit and a gigabyte is 8 times, just for clarification's sake. And so it's pretty fair to say that this is actually quite a nice touch from Sony. Now, another possible use for this would actually be handling things such as digital rights management, DRM. We know the system actually uses Microsoft's Play Ready DRM, just for example. There's also been some speculation that the processor can actually be used for other things. Not really game processing per se, but more for things such as the gameplay loop, the 15 minutes of footage, as well as handling all the compression and so on. Another set of guesses is that it's also used for things such as handling the drivers for the South Bridge, applications for the PSN, caching for installs, and goodness knows whatever else. So this is going to be of little surprise to some of you. As I said, this has been rumoured for a long time, even back when the AMD Jaguar wasn't confirmed and was still up in the air with the specs. In other words, when things were still being leaked and the system was known as Orbis, we were hearing rumours of this SoC, or should I say, of this ARM processor. Another theory as well that's being used is that because the PlayStation 4 is able to resume gameplay, as well as many other features, of course, because one of the purposes behind the PlayStation 4's design was to get away from the rather annoying way the PS3 functioned, and even the Xbox 360, although to a slightly lesser degree. And you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about downloading and patching and actually resuming the game. For example, The Last of Us took absolutely bloody ages to load. And goodness gracious, God help you if you happen to actually need to patch for, say, a multiplayer update in the meanwhile, because it would just take ages. And so they wanted to make this a lot smoother, they wanted to make the UI a lot smoother, they wanted to make resuming gameplay a hell of a lot easier. And another theory is that one of the purposes behind this ARM processor is that it will be doing just that. It will be basically handling shutting down the machine, putting data into a safe place. In other words, basically think of it as kind of like a standby guardian. Now, I know what you're going to say, but the PS4's AMD Jaguar is pretty damn energy efficient. True, but compared to an ARM processor, it actually gobbles up power. And so obviously a low power ARM processor, 256 megabytes of DDR3 memory, they're going to be a lot more power efficient on things such as standby tasks and so on than the GDDR5 memory, 8 gigabytes, and the PS4's actual AMD Jaguar. So with all of that put together, you get a very energy efficient system that's capable of doing many different things, most likely because let's just clarify this for a moment. I could put out another video tomorrow, as well as another article, which is going to completely contradict what I've said today, because a lot of this stuff has not been confirmed. In other words, it has not been confirmed by Sony, and we haven't gotten to the point where we've torn it down and understand the inner workings of the system sufficiently to be able to definitely say that's what this stuff does. But these are the leading theories and the most likely purposes of the processor thus far. I have to confess, I think it's quite a nice little touch in terms of Sony's addition to the system. It was also most likely pretty damn cheap. ARM processors now aren't that expensive. You're probably looking at just a couple of dollars really for the memory as well. So with all of that said, in terms of additional price to the system, it wasn't that bad. However, just as a little bit of an FYI and a little bit of a pause for thought, it may sound pretty insignificant, doesn't it? 256 MB of memory. But I would like to bring you to the attention of the PS3 for a moment. You know, that lowly console that you may have been playing just a couple of weeks back. That system actually had two sets of memory. It had one for graphics, and it actually had another set for main for main system memory. And both of those were actually 256 megs. The system was split, but effectively there was 256 megabytes, which was available for the operating system as well as the main game's codes, for example, audio assets and everything else to fit inside. So it's pretty damn awesome, in my honest opinion, that we're seeing such a great advancing technology. And pretty damn short amount of time as well, may I add. Anyway, that's just about it for this particular video. I know it's pretty short and sweet for one of my tech ones, but sometimes that's all she wrote, folks. As I said, there is a little bit more detail in an article which gives the screenshots and stuff, so you can check those out, as well as some links, so you can check those out too. You can peruse them at your leisure. Anyway, I'm going to get going as I still need to do a bit more recording, but I bid you a farewell and I hope you have a great day. Bye for now.